Hi, you're listening in to Gay and Grey Montreal's 6-part series called Queer Elders Sharing. It's funded by le Bureau de lutte contre la homophobie et la transphobie. Our two LGBTQIA+ guests shared how they overcame instances of homophobia and transphobia to become who they are today. We spoke on Tiohtià:ke, also known as Montreal. It's part of the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Kanien'kehá:ka, who are one of the founding nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. I'm Sarah Jesmer. As a queer Canadian American from a small farm town, these stories mean a lot to me because it helps me see a future I couldn't imagine before. In this episode, we meet Mari.e Cornellier. They share about their life as a grandparent and as a mother, about how their understanding of gender relates to their worldview, and about their continuous work in questioning heteronormative systems. We're so glad you're here. Let's listen in. Sous-titres français disponible sur notre chaîne YouTube. What do you think of that description? How would you describe yourself to another person, Marie?
That's what I call the short version,
Okay.
but I prefer the long version. Mari.e Cornellier, she, them. I'm suffering from chronic disease, but specifically what we call invisible illness. So it doesn't show, but it's there. And it's physical and by extension, there's mental problems that goes with it, because it has been 30 years this year that I've been officially disabled. I'm a grandparent of 3 grandchildren. I'm a descendant of French settlers, and I live on Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, and the Précambrien Shield, which is the Laurentian. I like that because Précambrien means very, very old place with very, very old beings on it. I was assigned female at birth, and I'm born from in the late 50s in a very Catholic French family and community. Family was not so Orthodox, but the community was very Catholic, especially in that time. And what else? Well, you said it. I'm a queer pansexual, non-binary person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked also how you defined AFAB.
AFAB is assigned female at birth, meaning what you see is not what you get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say.
How would you add to that? If you say what you see is not what you get.
It's both the fact that I pass as a woman. I played to be a woman for a period in my life. I have been treated as a woman, and when I mean at this point is meaning oppressed as a woman, being sexually abused, being there. I've suffered from violence, and all because I was a woman. And but there's also other parts as a non-binary. There is this more male part who loves being in a woman's body with breasts, experiences breasts and all those things, and he enjoy it a lot. And the third part is the part where there is no gender per se, and it's my relationship with non-human beings. So, and for me, non-binary means fluid, meaning that it's really, really shifting from not one perspective, because it's not intellectual at first. It's my body is shifting. It's between those identities. So I can be, I remember being, as a kid, being with the guys and really thinking that I'm one of them. They never saw me as one of them. But for me, there was no doubt that I was one of them. So that's my body had shifted. I could mimic the comportement, the behaviors. I was really one of them. The problem is that I didn't look like one of them, so I was not treated with like one of them, which is the more confusing part of being non-binary or fluid, meaning you are changing, nobody else sees it. But yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about the spelling of your name as well as Marie.
Mari, M-A-R-I.E.
Why?
You know, when I became officially non-binary, or I came out, lots of people are changing their name, for example. So I waited to see what name was coming up, and no name was coming up. But in French, how do we, because we have genders in the grammar, how do we do it to make it neutral? Is we put a point and then we put an E so that it's masculine and feminine. So I say I have all that in my name, so I'm putting a dot, and between the I and the E, or the E and the I. I always mixed up. So I say, in French, it makes sense. It brings Marie as a masculine and the E as a feminine. So that was my solution.
That makes sense. That would definitely make sense.
And the other thing that I liked about it was that by keeping my name, my birth name, my even Catholic birth name, I wanted to honor, because I came out very late, meaning 2014, in my 50s. But I was not becoming a non-binary person, and kind of all the life before was not worth, or was just a conflict, was just painful. I wanted to honor that as a female or AFAB, I had a lot of experience, and I had a lot of the resilience I still have are coming from many AFAB or women in their, I think of one of my grandmother, I think of other people around me, and I say I'm who I am because of them and because of that story, because I'm a grandparent, but you would say I'm a grandmother. As a non-binary, I'm a grandparent. I used to be called a grandmother, but there is so much joy around that I didn't want to erase it in any ways. That's my decision. One of the things I would say that I got from those women was they were fighters, they were very resilient, they were very stubborn women in many different fields and ways of doing things. But one of the things is that they taught me was to show up and contribute. They were not there, and that sense of individuality was not there, meaning they were doing that for all of us, all the time. So I'm just continuing this tradition from my own lineage, I would say. And because I think there's a lot of things that we need to change and to address. And if we don't show up, who's going to do it? If we never show up, if we are never there for them, how do you want to grow? And what's the example that you have to see how you will grow, and how it is possible, especially in a time like we are living, that there is so many challenges on top of it that we might not exist as a planet in a few years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you have any initial thoughts about like making sure that people who are going through instances of homophobia or transphobia. What did you think of that topic as it first came up, as you read about what this series is?
First thing I thought, am I the right person to speak about that? Because I came very late. So did I suffer from transphobia and homophobia? And I had a conversation with Danny who made me realize that, yes, I've been. I just didn't noticing it because I was not focused. I've been disabled very early in my life. So the main focus for me is disability. And the other issue were or were not there for long periods of time. But I realized as a non-binary, and especially as an AFAB, that I've suffered mainly from transphobia so many times. I was just not conforming to what is women, the way I was doing things, the fact that I worked into traditionally male jobs. I was always this weird person because when I was young, non-binary didn't exist as even a word or a concept, and less so in French. I'm not saying there weren't any. I just said that there were no, we were not addressing the issue. So I was just this weird person who didn't fit, not girly enough, not a man to do the work I was doing. So I've been bullied and they've tried at the job, for example. Many times they tried to intimidate. Thank you. Mm-hmm. They even mistreated me, and that's when I realized that yes, as a non-binary person, I really suffered, and suffered also in a way that I could put words to my situation. So I was not feeling comfortable with myself. I had to correct myself all the time, to watch myself all the time. And even I'm laughing now, I was looking at other people and say, how they do it. Okay, I'm going to copy that, and maybe I'll be the right girl models. And it didn't work out. I don't need to tell you that. And it's since I realized that I was non-binary that I feel joyful. I really feel that's my body, that's my, and it's not about the identity as, oh, that's what is happening within my body, and I'm calm now because that doesn't freak out. I'm not a freak. I'm not a circus person. Mm-mm. I'm just having those, I'm living those aspects and those transformations. So I'm a very, very curious person. So it goes very well with me.
Mm-hmm. And that's something to be celebrated, that curiosity that moves you from one thing to the next.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about what it was like to grow up for you? Like, if, as you're speaking about like coming to this realization in 2014, what was it like when you were very, very young? Is there ever a time that you resonated with the term or was called the term tomboy or something like that?
I didn't resonate. I was called a tomboy.
Yeah.
And tomboy, if you translate it in French, literally means fille manquée, a failed girl. So it's very offensive even though I wouldn't have said it that as a young person, but it's like people telling you that you're not a girl, which I believe I was. I had that body. And I realize how it is damaging to do that now that I have grandchildren, to come and say to a kid that you're not the perfect incarnation of your body. So it means that you have expectation to me to be something. what a child does, a child is, it feels like this, it's doing what it feels, it interact the way that comes naturally to them. But I've been told that I was not reacting, I was not playing, I was not doing the thing how I should have done them.
How others were expecting you to do it.
Exactly. And for a while, what it meant for me is puzzling me to a point where I couldn't trust my own sensation, feelings, none of it. I had to look and copy the others, but I couldn't be myself. And because of that, let's say in the abuse part of it, as a woman, I was expected to follow what men wanted of me. Let's put it that way. If I had been crushed into my own sense of doing things, I would have run. I would have run fucking far. I would have called them up. I would have done so many things that I didn't. I froze. I was being loyal and listening and copying what I've been told a woman should do or become. I was not a woman, that was clear in my mind also. But I was doing it or trying to do it to be the good and nice person and nice women. So it made the situation worse because I didn't react. So I became a victim of it. I was a victim of predator, but I shouldn't have been made victim of by not respecting or listening and acting on my own sensation of run. You need to be far away from this place or this person or whatever it was. So I've been abused by an uncle who was 89 at the time. I was in my, but that's later, it's my 20s. But it was so improper. But my reaction was, he's older, is my older uncle, is the head of the family on my mother's side. Oh, I should be polite. And sorry, fuck the polite. And fuck the, abuse is abuse.
Yeah.
And
it sounds horrible to go through.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. To realize that, oh, there's other ways of being and there's other ways of showing, but also to understand that the way I felt about gender was really ways that were imposed, that they weren't natural, anything natural. The nature of human being is not what we have been taught. The nature of human being is the way that we were ruled and imposed to be, but not what is coming out naturally. One of the things through indigenous teachings is that you're never alone. You're never an individual who can do anything, because you're not living without context. And that was such a wonderful teaching for me, because even though there are many people who aspired to be this individual, the fact is that you're floating in the air when you do that to a certain degree. If you want to be grounded, you're grounded on a place which called Earth, within a community, in relationship with others. And I don't think anymore in terms of rights, I think in terms of responsibility.
I wanted to ask as well a little bit more about your family, because you're talking about the importance of the context that you're in. Like, I'm here in this land, I'm in relation with these people, these are my roles and my responsibilities. When it comes to your role as a grandparent and also as a mother, how has your own understanding of your own gender affected these relationships that you have with your family?
The funny thing, or there's different levels, but one of the funny thing is how I came out to the girls. And to my son, I told him, but it was not an issue.
How old is your son right now?
40.
Okay.
Because we had talk about relationship with same sex, and it was nothing so out of the ordinary to a certain degree. So, but what was fun was that my son was doing some renovation in his house, and he was doing this huge kitchen, IKEA kitchen. So he called everybody to help them. So ses amis, his boyfriends, came to help him. And he asked me, because I do that all the time. So he asked me, and I was doing the drilling like the others. And the older one came and say, "Grandmama, how come you're doing construction when the other grandmama is taking care of us, preparing the food?" And, you know, she was seeing that the tasks were very different. And as a woman, I was not supposed, or it was strange that I was doing that. So I looked at her and I say, because grandmama is a man and a woman. She said, "Oh no, grandmama, c'est pas possible. It's not possible." I say, "Watch me." All that day, it was so fun. She would come and she would say, "And now, what are you, a man or a woman?" Oh, I would change the tag. "And now, what are you, a man or a woman?" So it was her introduction to the possibility of not being what she thought I was. The other thing was funny is that I'm the only grandparent who's living alone. And she would come and say, "Aren't you gonna find a granddaddy?" And I say, "And what do you think if it's a woman and not a man?" I would challenge her, meaning, you think the box are functioning like that and I should be in the box, but your grandmother is not in that box. And I say, I might be with the man, but I might be with the woman also. Do you have a problem with that? And at the end, she would never had a problem with it. She hadn't thought of it, but it was not a problem. So the in between, the second one recently told her mother, says, "Is it possible for a girl to love a girl?" And her mother said yes, you know. So the discussion is open now in the family.
I have one more question on this list, and then I want to hear your thoughts on, like, if there's anything I missed, and we'll go through that together. But you've gone through so many different things throughout these last couple decades as so many different roles. If you could give yourself a piece of advice as you first began on this journey of understanding who you are and what feels good to your body and what feels good to you, what would you say to a younger version of yourself?
I would answer your question because for me, what I don't like is to have an answer now that tomorrow might not be true anymore.
Okay, that's a great way to put it, because time makes a difference to the way that we answer. So today,
yes,
I'm going to ask you on this sunny day. It's a Thursday. What would you tell yourself as you are in this person with this information in your body, and you could look back with full respect that it could change?
What I tell myself about myself?
What piece of advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, what piece of advice? You have to start making peace with not knowing. I felt so insecure for so long because people told me, you should know at your age, you should know. And I didn't know. And I still didn't know. I know a few things about myself, but like I say, I don't know what's tomorrow, what will come, and it might change my whole life, which as has happened prior, and so many times, I don't know how many lives I haven't in this one. So I would fall and fall and fall and say, keep listening, keep looking, try again until I became, I understood what was non-binary, I decolonized. So there are so many things. When people ask, what did you dream of when you were a girl? Not what have happened in my life at all, none of it, except what in behind. The phrase that came very early on was, I want to live differently. But I didn't know to which degree differently meant. And I'm still looking for what's different. A quite simple thing, I would say, is that the way that oppression has worked, it's by always saying when we move, when we change, that what had happened before was wrong. That's wrong in itself. What have happened before was a process of becoming who I am today. And instead of saying, if I knew I was non-binary before, I would be a different person. Yes and no. What I've learned, what I've lived, is part of my story. Is really part of my story. What I've learned about injustice is the things that I've lived. I wouldn't know them, and I wouldn't be able to speak of them if I hadn't lived them. And like I say, the part where I was seen and lived as a woman had also great gift. I'm a non-binary, but as an AFAB. And it's different from I've been cultivated as a non-binary as a man. It's no good or bad. It's different stories. So why don't we accept instead of excluding part of our story, why don't we bring it, heal it, but bring it in the who we are in the now.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this.
Thank you for being such a good interviewer.
Thank you for saying such beautiful and important things.